Becoming the weightless rider is the secret to mastering traction on your motorcycle. This method of riding reduces the amount of impact that your bike has while it's going through. It makes it lighter, makes your suspension more effective, means there's less likely to have damage and less fatigue as a rider. It also keeps you in a proactive position so you can respond immediately to anything that occurs while you're riding. To become a weightless rider, you have to stand, but standing alone does not make you a weightless rider. The only thing standing gives you universally as an advantage is vision. By being up here, I can see farther, but more importantly, I can see shades, I can see dips, rocks, and potholes. An advantage, but it does not make you weightless. Weightless is the ability to let the bike move freely underneath you so that I float above the bike, so that my weight as a rider isn't influencing what's going on down below. And here's where a lot of riders make a mistake. First of all, they stand up and they want to be like this, stiff, because they say it's comfortable. What that means is I've raised the center of gravity on the bike, the entire center of mass. It makes it less stable. That's not what we want to do. We want to reduce the amount of weight, and we want to reduce it by carrying our weight down low on the foot pegs. That means we have to be able to move. I've got to be able to flow and let the bike move freely underneath me, making me weightless. So the first step riders will do is they'll go, okay, I'm going to pivot at the hips. So when they pivot at the hips, the problem is they end up moving forward. And that's not always where we need to be weightless. The next thing we do is we add the knees. So they'll move the knees and the hips. That's better, but it's still not weightless. We're not flowing with the bike. We're not trying to feel where we neutralize all the different things that are pushing and pulling on us. So we add in the ankles. This is when we can start moving around and allowing the body to flow forward and backwards and to be neutral, so that as the energy changes, as things on the trail move the motorcycle, we're always floating weightless above it. As a weightless rider, you're dealing with three different axes. One is pitch, the motorcycle rolling forward and back. The other is roll, left to right. And then we have elevation change. And when we're weightless on the motorcycle, all of those motions need to happen independent of where you are as a rider. As a weightless rider, we're never locked into a single position. We're always fluid. We're moving to find that neutral sweet spot, which is always moving above the motorcycle. When you're doing this right and you become the weightless rider, as you move along smoothly, the bike will move independent, floating underneath you on all three axes. There's three states of action that we need to consider when we're riding. There's a proactive state, an active state, and a reactive state. As a rider, we always want to stay in the proactive and the active state. We want to avoid the reactive state as much as possible. So let me give you an example of how this works. Let's say I'm riding into a puddle and I'm riding up along the edge. A proactive state says, when I ride up on that edge, I think the bike's going to slip into the puddle. So proactively, I move my body. So once I slide, the bike slides into me and I move into an active state as I finish the puddle. A reactive state means that I ride into that puddle without anticipating that slide, in an active state. When the motorcycle slides away from me, I'm now out of that central balance. I'm out of that neutral balance point, and I'm now reacting to it, trying to get back into balance. And that's when we have mistakes. That's when riders struggle, and that's when we burn a lot of energy. So focus on staying in a proactive and an active state when you're riding. The same thing happens when you're riding along and you'll catch a rock that'll kick the front end out or kick the back end out. And if you're in an active state where you're just up, when it kicks it out, now you're trying to get back into the balance point. A proactive rider will see what's going on and move in anticipation that the bike's going to be shifted. That keeps me in a place so that as the bike gets kicked out, I remain weightless and above the machine. I'm not using the handlebars to pull myself around. I'm not using the bike itself, the grip, to move myself around. I'm always in a floating position. You know you're in the sweet spot. You know you're in that weightless state when you feel nothing pushing or pulling on you. That's that point where you can let go of the handlebars, where you feel no pressure from thrust or from braking or from gravity or from the centrifugal force through a corner. In a neutral position where I'm floating above the motorcycle, just let go of the grip just enough to let the grip float inside your palm. And if you can do that, going down rocks, going up hills, going down hills, those are the places where you're in a neutral position. If you're going down a hill and you let go and you fall forward, you're not in the right spot. You need to move down and behind into a proactive position so you're neutral. So when you let go, your body stays in the right place. The same thing happens whether you're cornering, whether you're going uphill, downhill, it doesn't matter. There's an area where you don't feel anything pushing against your body. You don't feel any gravity, you don't feel any thrust, you don't feel any braking, where it's pushing you. And those are the things that we need to be tuned into to truly be weightless. We can't just think, go forward. We have to think, if I move forward, am I feeling any force? Am I holding on to the handlebars to keep myself up? Or am I too far back where I'm holding on so I don't get thrown back? When you're in that position where neither of those are occurring, where you don't feel any pressure on the handlebars, where you feel like you can just let go and stand free, that's when you know how far forward it needs to be. That's when you're weightless. When you practice the weightless rider technique, make sure you're standing, that you keep your eyes on the horizon. Pivot from your ankles, your knees, and your hips, and make sure that your hands are always loose on the grip.